Yesterday, we talked about how David had reached this low ebb of his life because of compromise. But at that lowest point, he found strength in the Lord his God. And we said then that at that moment, almost exactly, God started making things better, and the one guy who had been blocking him died. And that guy was, as you probably know, King Saul. And while David is finding strength in God, Saul is going into battle, and he and his 2 or 3 top heirs are all killed in that battle. And then something happens, and I just noticed it when I read it this time through. Something happens that's really cool, at least to me, or at least really cool to see. It says in 1 Samuel 31 verse 9, they cut off his head, Saul's head. Now that's not cool, but what follows is, they cut off Saul's head, and then it says, and stripped off his armor. And then it says, they sent messengers throughout the land of the Philistines, the enemy guys, to proclaim the news in the temple of their idols and among their people. And so they're celebrating the fact that Saul died. But that one little phrase that just caught my attention. They cut off his head and stripped off his armor. And I suddenly remembered the other time Saul's armor is mentioned in this book. And it's when David is getting ready to go out and face Goliath. And Saul says, hey, why don't you wear my armor? It will protect you. And David rejected it and said, I don't need it because A, it doesn't fit, and B, God's going to be my protection. He didn't need it for protection. And it turns out here, it wasn't that useful for protection anyway if God wasn't doing the real protecting. Because that armor turned out to be worthless without God backing it up. And I have to ask myself, what armor am I using instead of trusting God? Because Saul by this point was totally not trusting God. He was totally trusting his armor, his politics, his power. He wasn't trusting God, and everything for him fell apart at the same moment everything was going great and building back up for David. Because David was trusting God and Saul was trusting his armor. And I ask myself, and you can ask yourself the same question, what is my armor, and is it something other than God? And that's today's Jumpstart.